and call the meeting to order for Wednesday, June 3rd. And I guess people can actually watch this live, huh? Is that right, James?
Yeah, it's on the same channels it always is, Channel 10.
Oh, Channel 10, sure.
YouTube.
Okay. Well, let's begin with Sherry. Could you give us a roll call, please?
Chair Quilisi.
Here.
Vice Chair Nolan.
Here.
Commissioners Corbin.
Here.
Commissioner Lottis.
Here.
And Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Terrific. So we have a quorum. And for the Pledge of Allegiance, if I can remember the rotation from our last meeting 3 months ago or so, I think Commissioner Nolan, it's your turn to lead us.
All right. I guess I'm not sure that we're all going to rise, but if anyone so desires, they may. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, our first agenda item is selection of a chair and vice chair for the commission. I'd like to hear from staff. Can you fill us in on this, Lucas?
Yeah, so essentially what we'd like to do here is to have this item pulled from the agenda. And really the reason why is we've kind of done something here where we put the cart before the horse in terms of reselecting or selecting a chair and vice chair when we do have commissioners that have terms that have expired. So we really need to have council make a determination, a decision on, really we have actually 3 members on the Planning Commission right now that have terms that have since expired. So really we need to have City Council have and make a determination prior to us coming forward with a with kind of a vote and or decision for chair and vice chair.
And that next meeting is next week, I guess. Oh, Councilmember Wyrick, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to point out for the record that the first step is nominations from the chair of the council that are made to council for consideration. So I confess I don't know. Do we think have those nominations be made for council to consider, Lucas?
You mean for the next meeting?
Or whenever, yeah. But before it can be on, what I'm trying to point out is before it can be on the council agenda, the nominations have to be made by the chair.
Yes, they are for an upcoming meeting. That is correct. And just for the record, I went back and looked at the local appointment list, and we have 3 members that actually have terms that have since expired. But I mean, we have Chair Quilisi, Commissioner Corbin, and Commissioner Powers. So we have 3 of our 5 members that have terms that have since expired. So we need to go through that first step.
So we'll wait for council to reappoint or replace the 3 of us that have expired terms and then come back and do this selection?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Technically, the council confirms the nominations of the chair. Is how it works. Either confirms or rejects.
Oh, I thought we had the nomination and the election internally to the commission.
No, nominations to commissions are made by the chair of the city council.
Yes.
To the balance of the council, and then the council either accepts or rejects those nominations.
Okay.
So
and
these
how do
are
we accomplish nominations?
new rules? These are new
No,
rules.
that's the way it's always been. That's by code. That's in the city code.
Yeah, I wrote to James a month or 2 ago saying I'd like to be reappointed. How do we accomplish that? And I'm still in the dark on how we accomplish that.
Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the commission protocols adopted by council say that you should apply, submit an application for reappointment.
Yes, and the application goes through the city clerk's office.
Right.
So you'd be working with Gail Davis directly.
Yeah, contact Gail Davis about applying for be reappointed.
Okay,
It was my understanding that Ray and I, our terms went to sometime in August.
No, I have here on your terms expired May 26th of this year.
Okay.
And
Start until September.
Chair his term expired.
yeah, I think regardless of when the date you're appointed, your term ends on the second council meeting of May, 4 years hence or 3 years hence or whatever.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll set that aside for the moment. Public communications. Lucas or Sherry, do we have any emails from the public that they wish to address the commission?
No emails.
Okay, excellent. That'll speed it up. Then we have a consent item. This is item 2, the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, March 4th. So it has been 3 months, right? Did anyone have any adds or changes to the minutes of the March 3rd meeting? It says on the minutes. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting dated was it March 3rd?
March 3rd, yes, ma'am.
Yes, 2020.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Terrific. Thanks, Ray. Any discussion? If not, could we have a roll call, Sherry?
Quillisi,
I'm sorry, did you call me?
Quillisi,
Yes. Aye.
Nolan,
Abstain?
Corbin,
Aye.
Lottis,
Yes.
Powers.
Aye.
Thank you.
Terrific. Okay. Disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts. Just looking at the gallery, let's start with Ray.
Yes, I drove by the site. I didn't walk on it, but I had no ex parte contacts.
Great. And Commissioner Corbin
I visited the site, had no ex parte contacts.
and Commissioner Nolan
I looked at the site and had no ex parte contacts.
and Commissioner Lottis.
I also looked at the site, and I do want to disclose that the Jane Kimura is my dentist. And
Did
so,
you discuss the case with her?
no, I have not discussed the case with her.
Oh, no ex parte contacts then.
No ex parte contacts.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I've also visited the site, climbed up and looked over the wall off of Rains Court, and no ex parte contacts. Great. The next item is our discussion item, the lot line adjustment between these two parcels, the reverse corner lot at 418 Andrew and the flag lot at 1212 Daly. A lot line adjustment, LLA 19-001, to grant 3,037 square feet of land to the Andrew property from the Daly property. And the applicants, John S. Wong and Jan Kimura. Is either of the applicants here?
I'm
John
here.
is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ah, very good. Oh, first, let's hear from staff. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And James, if I could have you do a screen share where I can share my screen. I'd like to provide the site plan so we have something pretty to look at.
I enabled that already. You should be able to click on.
I can do it right now?
Screen share. Yeah.
Oh, City Seal looks nice.
How do I?
It's on mute.
It's down,
All right. Well,
down at
is
the
it on
bottom
my
of your
end?
string. Yes, it's on your end. If you look at your controls at the bottom, you'll see string share.
You have to tap it with your finger usually, or with your mouse.
there it is.
There.
Okay. Well, good evening. My name is Lucas Seibert, Community Development Manager here with the City of Ojai. As Chair Quillisi had just mentioned, this is a lot line adjustment for between two properties. One property that is a really kind of a flag lot, which is parcel 1 that you see here, and then also with parcel 2. Parcel 1 is the 1212 Daily Road, and really the flag lot portion, or the post of that flag lot, resides here. If you can see my cursor, it would be this thin rectangular piece here. It comprises of about 3,000 square feet in size, or 3,037 square feet in area. The total of which would be a difference where one property is gaining, one property is losing. And per code, when you have more than 10% of that change in difference from one property to the other, which in this case happens to be 16% for parcel 2, it requires Planning Commission consideration and approval. And in the differences that we're talking about here, 418 Andrew is increasing in overall square footage from about 18,000 square feet to about 21,000 square feet. This being Andrew here, parcel 2. So it's getting a bit of an increase in square footage, where 1212 Daily is reducing its overall square footage, obviously not by much, where the size of that lot is much larger, at about 53,000 square feet. It'd be reduced to about 50,000 square feet, still over an acre in size, and still somewhat awkward in shape. 1212 Daily would now be working towards having access off of Rains Court. There would be some things that they would need to do from an improvement standpoint. There is a resolution for consideration tonight as well. As a part of this, staff recommends approval with the resolution that is before the commission tonight. With that concludes my presentation. If the commission has any questions of staff, I could certainly answer them. The applicants, I believe, are here as well to answer questions. They may have a short presentation as well.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for staff?
So it's the same owner who owns both properties, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so the only thing, so in the staff report, it sounded like they would actually be constructing a new driveway apron from Rains Court, but per the condition number 4, they're actually not going to be required to do that until there would be some sort of building permit in the works for that site. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got to be careful with our conditions here. They've got to be, typically with lot line adjustments, you just meet the basic standards, and that's as far as we can go. Here, I don't think we've pushed the envelope. I've already had conversations with legal counsel on this, and I think we're certainly within our legal right for these conditions.
You might, I mean, since there's at least a 2 wall, wouldn't you say there were 2 walls on that I would make the wall plural, existing site wall.
Condition 4?
In condition 4.
Site wall. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Still within the first sentence?
Yes. Yeah.
Site walls. Yeah.
Yeah, just to make it clear. I mean.
Sure.
So, okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, I have a few.
Okay.
All right. To begin on the staff report, page 1, the bottom paragraph, lot line adjustment regulations, the code paragraph 10-3.11D, like dog, requires the applicant to provide a deed or record of survey. Does the city have this, or does the city expect it sometime in the future, and if so, when?
It's in the packet.
Yeah, so you should
Oh,
have
there's a quit claim deed. I did see that. I didn't see a record of the record of survey is this
It's here. Yeah.
little single page legal description.
Right. It's 2 pages, Steve. There's a little bit of verbiage on and the stamp of the surveyor on the second page.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Let me see. On page 2, it cites government code 65412D or 66412D, I'm sorry. Are we requiring the prepayment of increased property taxes on parcel 2 and expecting that the owner will get a refund of the same on parcel 1? How does that work, Lucas?
So that is typically handled through the county. When this is submitted and recorded, that's where the assessor's office will reassess, and you're going to see a difference in property taxes for both.
And that's when the lot line adjustment is certified and recorded at the county?
Correct. This is a part of that process.
Okay. A little farther down that page 2, I walked around both ends of this property, both the Daly Road side and the Rains Court side.
Mm-hmm.
And then I called the sewer district and I called Casitas Water District. The sewer district records show that there are 2 private sewer laterals, PSLs they're called, on Daly Road. One that serves parcel 2 and one that runs right into the middle of this flag lot driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How does the revised parcel 1 actually achieve sewer service? Is there a problem with the sewer lateral for parcel 1 running under parcel 2?
You're talking about for parcel 2, 418?
Oh, parcel 2 and parcel 1 have separate sewer laterals on Daly Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, does parcel 2 taking over this existing access, which in fact, I mean, if you walk around, you can see that's already done. This case here formalizes the takeover of that driveway property in effect.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is there are no easements that are being shown as a part of this. So that'll be vacated, and they'll be taking new access for parcel 1 on Rains Court.
Okay, I don't know.
Then we would certainly see something to that effect.
Both the sewer district and the water district said that there is a water meter on Daly just to the north of the sewer lateral that serves parcel 1. And the Casitas chief engineer today told me that they're fine with that. Anything on the customer side of the water meter, which is in the sidewalk along Daly, is the customer's responsibility. And I think the same is true for the sewer lateral. But the Casitas at least said that the owner of parcel 2 should be granting an easement to the owner of parcel 1 for access along that strip to have the utilities. Alternatively, both the sewer lateral there and the water line there could be cut off and reinstated over on the Rains Court side, which sounded to me like a whole lot more work than just chopping out the slumpstone fence there, taking out 3 trees and creating a driveway. I don't know if the city has a dog in this fight. I'm just trying to figure out what's legal here.
Yeah, I'm reading something from, it looks like it's regarding the lot line adjustment. And I'm just trying to make sense of it here right now. Yeah, and it's actually in reference to what you're talking about right now.
Perhaps this is more a question appropriate to the applicant when we get to that part of the hearing. But I would certainly be interested to know how either that easement will be granted for access to that strip of land, or it will not be granted and brand new utility access points have to be established in Rains Court. And there is both a water main and a sewer main that go right up to the cul-de-sac there on Rains Court.
Right. Let's have the applicant speak to this. I'm reading this letter, but I also want them to speak to this as well.
Super.
So we've already addressed this in our packet. There's language from Attorney Lindsay Nielsen that grants a easement if parcel 2 is sold, that an easement for parcel 1 for both utilities would remain, and that we are able to keep the existing sewer and water going through onto Daly Road. So that's included in the packet.
So versus having sewer access and water access off of Rains, you would retain for parcel 1 access off of Daly Road.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the way
I
I'm reading.
see
That's
the
the way I'm
letter
reading
here from the attorney, but it refers to the plan is when parcel 2 is sold. The driveway would be released and quit claimed to the new buyer. If we do this lot line adjustment, the driveway is now part of parcel 2, correct?
That's
so
right.
I don't understand what the quit claim is for the driveway.
So I had when I talked to the attorney, he basically said that we are unable to create an easement while we still own the property, both properties. And so the idea is that, in his view, that there is no reason to grant a easement while we own parcel 2. However, if or when we sold parcel 2, we would then grant the easement for the utility to parcel 1 to allow the utilities to pass through the driveway section, which would then be part of parcel 2.
That was my understanding of how it would work, but the letter refers to the sale of parcel 2, not to the sale of parcel 1.
Correct, because we own both parcels right now. If Mr. Jones if we sold the parcel 2 to Mr. Jones, we would then grant the utility access to parcel 1 as part of that process, so that Mr. Jones would then inherit a easement for the utilities passing under his through the driveway portion at that point. That was my understanding from the lawyer.
Right, and that's my understanding too. I just didn't get that from looking at the lawyer's letter. Okay, let's go back to page 2 of the staff report and the table. It says the minimum lot width is 40 feet. I'm not sure where that is measured. It looks to me like the minimum lot width on parcel 1 might well be that driveway, which is way less than 40 feet.
Yeah, you're right.
Since
That's
parcel two, since
an error
parcel
on
two
our
is a reverse corner lot, technically by code, the front of parcel two is on Daly. And and at the current time, that frontage is, it looks like 34 feet.
Yeah.
With the addition of this driveway, then it becomes more than 40 feet and it becomes conforming. I'm just curious how that minimum lot width of either parcel one or parcel two is computed and measured. Can you help on that, Lucas?
Yeah, so you're correct. It would be off of Daly in terms of that lot width. And a lot of times when you're trying to figure out lot width, you would take both widths of the lots. So you do have, sorry here, you have a lot width here, using my cursor again, and then you have this lot width here, right? And then you have access here along Andrew and along Daly Road.
Sure. But the code says if you're on a corner, the front of the lot, which is, I guess, where you measure the width, is whatever the shortest distance is along a street.
Yeah, so it would be right here. You're looking at this is showing 34 feet.
Right, and it becomes conforming at around 44 feet if we do this lot line adjustment.
Right.
I do have a question about the calculating the lot width. I thought on a corner lot, because there was a situation in our neighborhood involving a corner lot, and because the house fronts on the other street, which in this case would be Andrew, and takes the access from Andrew. I mean, it's not Andrew, but in our neighborhood, it was the equivalent.
Yeah.
The front yard then became the frontage on Andrew, not Daly. So there's something in the code, maybe if you can clarify, there's something in the code about which frontage you use depending on the orientation of the house and the access. I believe it could be,
Right.
it could be
Well, yeah, we have a couple of good examples. First is a case that Commissioner Nolan and others may recall of 402 North Blanche. We had people wanted to add on to the house there. The narrowest part of that corner lot actually faces on Oak, not on Blanche, even though the front door faces Blanche and they've put a Blanche address on it. But according to the code, the front of their yard is on Oak. A second example would be Bob Daddy's property on Quail Oaks, just close to my neighborhood here, where he has about a 10-foot frontage on Foothill Road. And then the quote side of his lot, which runs along Quail Oaks, must be 250 feet long. But the front of his lot is technically that little 10-foot strip on Foothill Road. And that's why I was asking for clarification, Lucas.
Yeah, so it's typically you're correct. It's typically the narrowest portion of that lot. Even if the house is taking access on the opposite street. So in this case, it's taking access off of Andrew, but the front would still be considered Daly Road.
Right. And if the minimum lot width is 100 feet, then neither of these is conforming. Even if we grant the lot line adjustment, and there is now, if you can roll your screen down to where we can see Rains Court again, it looks to me like the distance between the corners of, what is it, lot 5 and lot 4, that space, I'm not sure how big it is. You're showing access of 40 feet, which looks like it clips off a little bit of those two lots. But if it is 40 feet, and let's grant that for the moment, that's still non-conforming because the minimum lot width, which is that portion that runs along a street somewhere, is the minimum lot width is still 100. So my understanding is that both of them are legal non-conforming, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, so in here I'm saying consistent, and I wrote in yes when actually it should have been no, and I put in non-conforming, which it is non-conforming.
Yeah,
by what we're
okay.
looking at here.
And both of them are non-conforming then.
Correct.
Okay. All right. On to the next page of the staff report. And I don't want to get too deeply into this, but I presume, and maybe we can clarify this with further discussion, that if we do this lot line adjustment, then the new owners of the owner of parcel 2, which will now include that access driveway, are they required to do a reconstruction of the driveway cut and the sidewalk along Daly?
I have that as a condition of approval. Looking at the resolution itself.
Says prior to city recordation of the lot line adjustment, this is condition 3, the owner shall obtain a public works encroachment permit and fix the sidewalk and the driveway cut.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I guess, whether the lot line adjustment is recorded by the city only becomes material to the owner of parcel 2, Mr. Wong, when he wants to sell one or the other of the parcels. Is that correct? Otherwise, there's no real impact of not fixing the sidewalk and the driveway cut. That is, there's no impact of not recording the lot line adjustment. Not until you sell one property or the other.
I'm not sure I'm following your question. The way I'm reading this condition, my read of this is prior to the city's sending this off for recordation, this encroachment needs to be revised.
Right. The driveway cut and the sidewalk need to be fixed.
Correct. So we will not send this off for recordation until that is done. Meaning the city engineer will not sign off on this and send it off for recordation. City staff will not send this off until this has been satisfied. And that's why this was written in here, to ensure that while our decision or the commission's decision tonight is one thing, but that's one step towards the recordation. There are still items that need to be satisfied prior to recordation.
Right. And my question is, what's the practical impact of holding off for any particular amount of time prior to selling one parcel or the other? I think it makes no difference. The recordation makes no difference. Is that right?
Correct. The other thing that is interesting about the way these conditions are, if you look at condition 7, it states within 1 year of the planning commission approval, that's assuming that the commission approves tonight, the permit shall be exercised in compliance with Article 32 of this chapter, or the permit shall be deemed void unless such approval is extended by the commission for good cause either before or after the expiration of such time period.
Okay.
So that from approval, they have 1 year.
For the lot line adjustment then?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. It's referred to as a permit in passing, but really it's an approval for them to move forward, knowing that they still have to do satisfy specific items prior to the recordation.
Okay. I ask because I'm still waiting to see driveway cuts and sidewalks repaired at either the Ojai Roadie or the Topa Topa Brewing Company, and they've both been open for a long time. I don't, does the city monitor and enforce these conditions, or how does that work?
Yes, we certainly do monitor, and those, while I'm not as familiar with Ojai Roadie, I am very familiar with Topa Topa.
Ojai Roadie is just another block east.
Correct. The conditions for Topa Topa, as an example, were very specific. This commission certainly had a very heavy hand in those conditions, and that is where we're looking at here. If this item is not completed within that 1 year time period, then the lot line adjustment that was approved by, or the decision that was made by, let's just, I'm not speculating here, but let's just assume that the planning commission tonight makes that determination to
And
approve it.
approval would be voided.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Let me see. Okay, on your density calculations, that table at the bottom of page 3, it looks like, since we don't build fractional dwelling units, do we round everything up to the next whole number?
It does. It rounds.
That does. Does 1.3 round up to 2?
Yes.
Okay. That's all my questions on the staff report. Anybody else have anything? We'll get back to the resolution later. No? Okay, fine.
Okay, so I actually, thank you, Steve, for bringing up those questions about the sewer line, it's sewer and water, right?
Sewer and water. I'm not sure where the electrical lines are to parcel 1.
Okay, so what happens if the owner of parcel 1 records this, but then they sell it? What happens if the owners of parcel 2 sell their property to a new party, and the easement issue has not been resolved?
That's, I think, the case that is covered by the lawyer's letter back in the packet.
Yeah.
It says
The letter that was sent out, yes.
if parcel 2 is sold,
Oh, parcel 2. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting parcel 1 and parcel. Okay, if parcel 2. Okay, all righty.
if parcel 2 is sold, but
So
if either one is sold before the lot line adjustment is recorded, then we're kind of in quicksand, I think.
yeah, I just think that it would be desirable to have better clarification on where those utilities are going to be located for parcel 1. And I don't know why they should go under the existing parcel 2. It seems like it should all be new. It should be treated as though it's parcel 1 is being a newly developed parcel, and they're getting their access from Rains Court, so why not the other items? Whatever it is, whatever staff and council or the commission thinks is appropriate, I just think it would be better to clarify that in a condition.
I'd ask the applicant to speak to any issues with Rains Court having utility access, either through sewer or water.
I mean, the water, sewer, and the electrical is all there in Rains Court, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sewer and water are there, and the existing gas meter is there. I'm not sure about electricity.
Yeah. Well,
but
those other houses are all taking their electrical from presumably the street.
Somewhere nearby, yeah.
And furthermore, the sewer and the water and sewer laterals there are at this point probably pretty darn old. So I mean, I don't know, if there was rebuilding of parcel 1, it seems like it's probably time to have a better, more updated sewer and water service. That's just a comment.
It certainly makes for long sewer and water laterals. if they
Coming
continue
from
to
Rains
run
Court?
under the old driveway. I'll agree with you there. It just
Yeah.
seemed to me like it would be an awful lot of effort and expense to establish new water and sewer laterals from parcel 1 into the existing facilities on Rains Court. It means tearing down the wall, part of which has to be done for the driveway, but then tearing up the street. And I just didn't know how that was going to work. So we'll ask the applicant, I guess.
Chair Quillisi, I have a
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
So I just want to be clear on this. I'm, trying to grasp the utility situation. But in the attorney's letter, it says in the first paragraph, I understand that there currently exists 2 utility pipelines in the existing driveways that serve parcel 1 from Daly Road. So there are 2 existing lines there. And Kathy, are you saying that you would like to know what condition they're in?
Well, I'm just saying both of those lines are probably, I mean, they're old at this point, and if parcel 1 is going to be in the future, if it's ever redeveloped, it needs a new access from Rains Court, and I mean, I guess I don't know for sure, but it seems
we don't know. We don't have. Who knows? We don't know how old they are.
it seems
I think the 2 utility pipelines that are mentioned are the water and sewer that
Right.
go from facilities on Daly Road right up to the end of that driveway access.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for us to make a call on it, I mean, really, we would have to have a report, that they were assessed and what condition they were in for us to make that call. Unfortunately, we don't have.
Also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, but if my understanding is that to put in a new sewer line is many, 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 many thousands of dollars.
It is. Yeah.
It's about $100 a linear foot between the sewer main and the edge of the public right of way.
but on the other hand, that in the sewer line in particular, I mean, they're not in use, but they're not being maintained, they're not being used, and they're just sitting there deteriorating.
Well, but
And when parcel 1 is developed in the future, if it is ever, they have to have a new access off of Rains Court. I just can't understand why a new parcel with new development wouldn't logically take all of its services from Rains Court. To have water and sewer lateral going under somebody else's property just is like kind of archaic, honestly. And so we're talking about if parcel 1 is ever redeveloped, it will be developed to current codes and standards, and it'll be all new. And why on earth would they ever, why would we want to complicate a future scenario of development and allow water and sewer going under parcel 2?
Well, I think what we don't know is, you can trenchlessly line an existing sewer line and basically make it new. We don't know
Yes,
the implications of doing one and doing the other. It might not be that much to put it through Rains Court, which certainly would be the first choice. But if it's an outlandish number, and I have friends who have tried to put in new sewer lines and the amount was like astronomical, I think that, we need more information before we should do that.
So maybe the better way to do it is if we have the concern and the conditions of approval. I don't even know if it's under our jurisdiction to say that it needs to be in a certain order. For instance, that line may have been there from the get-go, designated for parcel 1, and it may have never been used, either one of them. So they may be essentially in good condition, but we don't know that. So it's all like, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, Kathy. Like, wouldn't you put a new one in? But at the same time, if there's 2 lines and they're in good condition, it's almost like either.
The staff report says that the house that was on parcel 1 burned down, and the slab was buried 16 years ago.
And the house originally was built when? I forgot. I have to go back and look on that.
I didn't see that date.
Yeah. So it's hard for us to say because we don't have a report that's saying, what condition those 2 utility pipes are in.
Well, I wouldn't die on my sword to require
Yeah.
utilities from Rains Court, but I think, we're being asked to make a decision tonight
Right.
that does impact future provision of utilities to a separate parcel. And if we leave it so that it's not clear how
Right.
this would be taken care of, if parcel 2 is sold off in the future and then ultimately parcel 1, and we have totally different parties and they hate each other,
Right.
we're just setting it up for a bad scenario in the future. And I just think that this decision is affecting
Right.
those services, and that one way or another, it ought to be made.
Mhm.
I would like to see that it's clarified somehow in terms of how how those services will be provided.
And I agree with you on definitely on having clarification, and that it is a little murky, and down the road in the future, it could potentially be an issue.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, as I look again at the attorney's letter, it says when parcel 2 is sold or transferred, the driveway would be released and quitclaimed to the new buyer. And
Right.
I'm not sure if that refers to the new buyer of parcel 2.
For parcel 1.
I presumably, but why would you release and quitclaim that which, assuming the lot line adjustment is approved, is already part of parcel 2?
Right.
Why would you quitclaim that? If you're talking about granting an easement to the owner of parcel 1, they're the same party right now. This is what the Casitas folks told me would need to be done if the owner of parcel 1 wishes to have utility access where it now exists, whatever condition, I don't know. And yes, it would, if you're starting from a green field, it makes sense to go to Rains Court for these things. It's a lot shorter run,
Sure.
unless the water and sewer lines that come through that little rectangular piece of land are still usable, in which case they terminate somewhere in parcel 1, presumably somewhere around the buried remains of the house slab. So I don't know that we can work that out, but I think that you're both right. We need to have some sort of provision in the conditions to make sure that we don't wind up with a problem here
Right.
when parcel 1 is redeveloped.
Right. Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah.
So Lucas, would you have a suggestion there?
Wondering when that was going to get bounced back to me. So I've heard all of you, and I initially was a little bit hesitant, but the more I'm hearing from the commission, I think it does make sense that we have some sort of condition, and I would even consider it to be assurance to regarding these utility easements. On the other hand, in terms of access to these utilities on daily and preserving that which already exists versus Rains Court as a new access point for utilities. And I just looked online, and there's I don't know if it's Edison, it's probably Edison poles that are either on the property or right up against the rear of the property.
The
So
north
they've
edge
definitely
of
got-
parcel 1, you mean?
For parcel 1, correct.
Okay.
'Cause I was curious of that myself, because if you look at Rains Court, all the utilities must be undergrounded because there are no poles on Rains, at least that I saw. Regarding the utilities, I think we could craft a condition that speaks to what the commission is talking about. I am open to suggestions and molding some sort of language. I think we could put it within the project specific conditions and call it condition 6. And I would actually like to hear from the property owner as well and get some feedback from them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Much of what we've done here is deliberation. We shouldn't be into that yet.
Right.
Okay. Are there any more questions for staff at this point?
I just wanted to verify the piece of land that we're discussing on parcel two is the one where the driveway cut already exists,
Yes.
and it looks like it's already part of parcel two.
If you look at it, it's been taken over as part of parcel 2, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Bailey Road.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Bailey Road.
Okay. Let's finish the questions then for staff, and let's hear from the applicant. Mr. Wong?
Yes. Is there a specific question you'd like me to address, or, I mean, I'm obviously unclear on the process here, so I appreciate some guidance on what you'd like me to address, or, you know.
Yeah, John, let me just let me ask you a question here as a
Sure.
clarifying question here, because it is the item that really I think the entire commission has been grappling with,
Sure.
and that is the utility access where I would consider it to be the post of where the flag lot
Correct.
exists,
Mhm.
and the absorption of that area into parcel 2, which is 418 Andrew.
Yes.
There's already two utility lines that are going through that, the sewer and the water, correct?
That is my understanding. We've confirmed that with both the sewer and the water people.
Right.
Okay. Have you looked into accessing and creating a new access point along Rains Court and what that looks like?
We did talk to them about both situations, and there was kind of a part of it being most of it being cost. A new connection is for sewer, a new connection is quite expensive, and so that was one of the major concerns. We had talked about utilizing the existing one and what that would mean, and sort of where the responsibility lay in terms of the access to parcel 1 versus the sewer company, a new connection and things like that. And basically, they thought that the existing connection would be fine if we, redid the line or examined the line or did something like that. They didn't really have an issue with that. So moving forward, it was just one of those thoughts of utilizing what was there versus creating something new seemed to be a little more cost effective, at least from a planning standpoint, and moving this project at least forward. Because, they asked us, are you going to build tomorrow? And the answer was no. So they said, well, I think at this point we can just talk about leaving it there because it's already there. It's already existing. They don't have to start planning on where they're going to put the meter, where they're going to put the connection and all that other sort of stuff. So it was more of a discussion point, I think, with the company.
Okay. I would, okay.
And that's
Don't wanna
why,
get into deliberations
I
yet.
think the same issues that the commission had in terms of what happens if with parcel 2 getting sold and parcel 1, and how do we preserve that? That's why we spoke to the lawyer about trying to move the discussion along that of trying to solve some of those problems moving forward, right? Of preserving that access if one or both of the lots is sold. How do we preserve the utility access, right? And so the idea was it's already existing. Can we preserve that relationship? And he simply said, yes, this is how you would do it.
Yeah, I still find the attorney's letter confusing. I don't know why you would release and quit claim to a buyer of parcel 2 that strip, which, assuming we approve this, is already part of parcel 2.
So when I spoke to him, his thought process,
easement,
sorry,
and giving an easement to the new owner of parcel 1, assuming parcel 1 is sold, then that's what the Casitas people told me would be necessary to preserve those utility lines for the owner of parcel 1. And so I'm just wondering, sir, if you would be amenable to a condition that said, with approval of this lot line agreement, you would certify, by means I'm not ready to try to specify, that appropriate water and sewer utility connections are available in parcel 1, either from Rains Court or from Daly Road.
I mean, I think from a cursory perspective, I don't think I have a problem with that. I think that parcel 1 to be developed would need access to both utilities. So, I mean, I think, you know, we don't have plans to develop it at this point, but if to move this project forward, if you're asking us that we do either or, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. If that's what you're saying. I mean, it makes sense to me what you're asking, which is we need to make sure that utilities are available for parcel 1.
Exactly. That's my only goal here, is to have a condition that makes sure that the utility lines of those two sorts are available somewhere to parcel 1, without the parcel 1 buyer having to put in new access lines.
Sure. I mean, I would probably ask staff to help us with that process and what that would look like. But that does make sense to me.
Yeah. And clearly you're going to have a driveway over on Rains Court. And it looks from Lucas's drawing here that there's an existing meter that comes off of, I guess, a gas line in Rains Court. But it seems to me like it would be a lot of effort and expense to put in new water and sewer connections through that 40-foot area on Rains Court, which is the tangent of the wall of parcel 1 to the Rains Court property, or public right-of-way, I guess. That is my understanding. Process.
That is my understanding.
Yeah, and if you could just certify that you will ensure that the lines coming from Daly Road are still usable at parcel 1, then I think we've solved the problem. That, or provide them at Rains Court. It sounds like the most inexpensive solution would probably be to make sure that the lines coming from Daly Road are usable on parcel 1.
I don't have an issue with that. I would just, I guess, ask for guidance on the mechanism by which it is certified.
Yeah. Bobby?
Can I just say something? When you sell a house now, by law, you have to have the sewer line inspected.
Right. Or if you remodel.
Since you already have a sewer line, that it would need to be inspected. They run a camera through it, and if it's not up to what they think is appropriate, or if there are any issues with it, it has to be fixed before it's sold. So the parcel 1, I would assume, would have to do that.
Yeah, the problem that we run into is that the line is no longer on parcel 1.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
so that's why I would want to see
but
the owner of parcel 2 be responsible for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Whichever lot gets sold, they need to make sure that utility line is usable.
The 2 lines, yes.
Yes.
Both.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this right now? Is there anything else you'd like to say to address the commission, Mr. Wong?
I appreciate this was a lot of hard work, and I appreciate staff's effort in guiding us through this process. This process has been extraordinarily complicated. I really do appreciate their guidance in helping us try to get our ducks in a row and try to figure this out. So I appreciate that.
It's a good staff, yes.
Yeah.
All right, then let's close the. We don't have anybody else in the audience, I guess, who wants to address this item. So we'll close this public hearing and take it back to the commission for deliberation. My first question to Lucas would be, can you craft some words that we can either agree to tonight or agree to 2 weeks from tonight in terms of this new condition?
So I'm calling it condition 6, and this is going to be kind
And
of
renumbering the subsequent ones, yeah.
Yes, so it would, within project-specific conditions, we have 5, which speaks to addressing reassignment for parcel 1 of Exhibit 1 to this resolution prior to issuance of any building permits for parcel 1. And then 6 would state, and mind you, this is in draft form, and it may not necessarily read completely correct right now, but we can certainly modify the language. Prior to development of parcel 1, the lot line adjustment that the property owner and then I have would certify utility access through either Daly Road or Rains Court.
The access and condition.
It would.
The access. Oh, condition. Condition meaning the condition of the utilities themselves, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my thought was the owner of parcel 2 needs to ensure that parcel 1 has adequate water and sewer utility connections, either through the existing lines off of Daly or through new lines off of Rains Court. That way, if Mr. Wong retains ownership, say, of parcel 1, but sells parcel 2, then the new parcel 2 owner would have to be aware of the fact of having to ensure that those utility connections are available to parcel 1 whenever parcel 1 is redeveloped.
The only thing that I'm thinking about with that condition is typically I like to have some sort of you get to a certain point, like for instance, prior to development or prior to an action taking place, prior to the issuance of building permits or selling of a property. I'm looking for some sort of an actionable item that I can.
How about how about the action being the recordation of the lot line adjustment?
If possible, I mean, is this feasible if Mr. Wong decides that they will provide that the lines are usable from Daly Road to supply water and sewer to parcel 1? It seems that in that case, the easement should be shown on the lot line adjustment.
And the easement would be granted from the parcel 2 owner to the parcel 1 owner.
Or the easement.
So I think
for access to those lines.
The only thing that I'm gonna, and I agree with you in concept, but this attorney's letter at the very end states her last sentence here states, as I explained, an owner cannot have an easement on his own property. A sample deed is attached. I don't have the sample deed here with me, but
no, there's an example of a quitclaim deed there. But I just like to. My personal feeling is I'd like to see a condition on the recordation of the lot line adjustment that those utility lines are confirmed as still usable for parcel 1, and that be the responsibility of the owner of parcel 2. And I word it that way because Mr. Wong is both right now.
What about something like written confirmation? You were talking about certify or certification. What about written confirmation?
Written confirmation from the utility companies, from the water and sewer utilities, that the lines are usable on parcel 1. Were you thinking that along that line?
Yes. That the lines are usable for parcel 1 through parcel 2.
Now, since parcel 1, according to one of the tables in the staff report, could in fact be used to put in as many as 4 dwelling units, it could be that you want a bigger line, bigger water line, and potentially a bigger sewer line, I don't know, to serve 4 houses on parcel 1 than you would have serving the original 1 house on parcel 1. And that's why I'd like to leave it to the owner of parcel 2 to decide what is the most efficient and economical way to ensure that those utility connections are available on parcel 1. I don't want to presuppose that either solution is more expensive than the other.
Chair Quillisi?
Yes, ma'am.
When you were referring to the potential of 4 units on parcel 1, that would assume, I believe, that the lot would be subdivided, correct? Like into approximately 4 quarter-acre-ish size lots, and in which case they would each have their own meter for water and have their own sewer connection if they were subdivided. Or were you referring to if there was a new house?
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. There could be as many as 4 units there, and that would require a bigger service, I presume, than what exists under that easement or under that flag piece of property right now.
Well, it may even mean there, I can't see it on the plan right now. It's easier for me to read the screen than my own sheets that I've got here. But is there a meter at the street shown or not? Because if there's just a meter, that means it went to 1 house. In which case, if the lot was subdivided, 4 meters or 3 additional meters would have to go in. Whether it was on Rains or on Daily, depending on how this goes.
I think it's probably 4 meters because you'd have everything running through a single line. Yes, there is a water meter in the sidewalk on Daily, approximately 3 or 4 feet north of the chain link gate that's there now.
So, but if it was subdivided, each individual lot in the subdivision, if it was subdivided, not technically a subdivision, but would have its own meter. So I think what you're saying is you're speaking as though this was a feed line for 4 other parcels, when in fact it's a service line to 1 parcel or 1 residence existing.
Yeah, the water meter that's there on Daly Road served 1 residence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about potential scenarios in the future.
Yeah. But if it were subdivided, I mean, all the question of utilities could be revisited with the parcel map anyway. So
exactly,
I'm not so concerned about that.
Whether they were located once again back on Daly, or 1 was on Daly and 3 were on Rains, or 4 were on Rains. It's all doable. We're just talking about potential scenarios. That could come.
My concern would be if a buyer of parcel 1 decided to retain the single line, the single water and single sewer lines that run in the property in question here, then that buyer has to have access, and that's when the easement comes into play. And we don't know if it's any good.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's maybe it's not Mr. Wong's responsibility to ensure that those lines are usable, but he is taking over the property if this is approved. So I feel like there's that responsibility there.
Mhm. Right, and as Bobby brought up, if you're going to make a sale of a property, the sewer line has to be inspected, and if it needs to be upgraded, it will be prior to the sale.
Right. The question would be who upgrades it, because it runs under one parcel to another.
But it's an easement, so it essentially that utility line is owned by, I would assume, parcel 1. It has an easement to go through parcel 2, but it belongs to parcel 1.
That's correct.
The utility lines would belong to parcel 1, and the
Right.
owner of parcel 2 would have to give an easement to the owner of parcel 1 for access to those lines. Yes.
Right. If, for example, Mr. Wong decided to sell parcel 2 and he was going to take over parcel 1, let's just say,
Mhm.
if he then decided to sell parcel 1, it would be his responsibility to make sure that those lines worked, not parcel 2. I mean, it's confused because right now he owns both parcels.
Right. But he would need access to those lines under parcel 2.
So what we're saying is that giving the lot line adjustment, it also needs to be stated that there is access to those lines for parcel 1 whenever. And that should be part of the lot line adjustment, is the access to the utility parcels.
Right. So maybe Lucas, you can write something up that we can look at.
So I have one that I'd like to read in regards to what we're talking about here. And then Commissioner Corbin, you just brought up another point, which was discussed in the attorney's letter. But I want to read the first one based on kind of what we've been talking about here. And it's got an actionable item, meaning something has to be taken before something else happens. So I have, prior to the recordation of the lot line adjustment, the property owner must provide written confirmation the existing utility lines, and I have in parentheses here, water and sewer, are usable for parcel 1 through parcel 2. Now, I use the word usable, and that's interchangeable, obviously.
Right.
But does that get us closer to what we're talking about here?
I think so.
It sure does for me.
Okay.
Right. I feel better. Yeah.
That's ensuring that the lines are usable, but also at the point where either parcel is sold, then that's when there has to be an access easement granted from the owner of parcel 2 to the owner of parcel 1.
Right.
And we could make that a condition 7 regarding the access easement.
Yeah, that would certainly make me happy.
Okay.
Do you have any problems with what we're talking about, Mr. Wong?
No, I just have a question. Is that last condition, is that what we addressed with the attorney?
Well, I thought so until I read the attorney's letter about 3 times, and it says, in order to preserve easements for the existing utilities, there would need to be a reservation of utility easement within the same legal description being quitclaimed to parcel 2. Okay, so that says you have to have you have to grant an easement for access of the land that's being transferred to parcel 2, I guess.
Yes.
I think so.
When I discussed this with the attorney, because we had asked, hey, let's get all of our ducks in the row, right?
Sure.
Let's get the easement, let's do it now. And the response was, you can't. So we have to. You can't have an easement on your own property, otherwise we would have done it. So that's why we did he said you have to get it, you have to put it in place and then make it actionable when you sell. So
as owner of parcel 1 and owner of parcel 2, you are not 2 separate parties, I guess.
Correct. So I can't grant myself an easement.
Okay.
That's so.
uh,
But the idea is that, and the idea is that if, I guess if parcel 2 were sold, we would quit claim and then allow the utility access easement to be granted to parcel 1.
Right.
That's the important part.
So that's the wording that needs to go into the
Yeah.
condition 7, I think.
Right.
And maybe Lucas can answer this because I'm not sure, but can you add the wording on the lot line adjustment about a reservation of a utility easement?
You're talking about for
Like
conditions.
as a note on the lot line. Would that be possible? Or
Wait, are you talking about with the recorded documents themselves, or are you talking about as a condition of this resolution?
well, as a condition of the resolution, that's fine. I just you know how you put notes on a parcel map or lot line adjustment. Like there's notes over on I can't even read it, but on the right hand side. You know what? A condition of approval is fine.
So you're talking about a condition of approval regarding the quit claim, right?
Yes. Yeah. Just using the language from the attorney's letter.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something that you can put in a note on the recordation of the lot line adjustment, but that appeals to me just to say there is a reservation or a restriction or whatever you want to call it on this new piece of property that requires an easement be granted from the parcel 2 owner to the parcel 1 owner if either parcel is sold, so that they do not have common ownership.
I mean, I would leave, I just am not sure whether you can do that as a note on a lot line
Yeah,
adjustment.
I don't know. It's the concept that I'm searching for, and I don't know where you put it to make it legal.
Right. Or if you even can. But I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. I know where you're going with it.
Okay.
I like the clarity of it, Steve. I agree.
We could stipulate to that. I mean, that's our intention, and we've already went through that
Sure.
process.
Yeah.
Right. And then legally,
I don't know how.
it'll go the way it goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think what's important here is as long as the applicant is agreeable to the condition, then it's certainly something that we can move forward with.
Yeah. Then you can word the condition, and we can move on
Yes.
to deliberation. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. I appreciate you showing up for this and being so agreeable to all this craziness that seems to have arisen.
It helps having people look at it and understand it and be reasonable, looking at what we're trying to accomplish and our intentions. So I appreciate your time.
Right. Okay. Can we we'll reclose the public hearing, I guess, and go back into deliberation. I have some questions on the wording of the resolution itself. Does anyone else?
Which part, Steve? Which?
Well, I have questions on page 2 and 3 of the resolution.
All right.
And these get pretty picky because this becomes a legal document where the staff report is not.
Sorry to interrupt. Should I be leaving?
Oh, you're welcome to stay. You're part of the audience, Mr. Wong. You can stay or go at your choice.
Okay, I just didn't want to, be a part of deliberation if I'm not allowed.
No.
You can listen.
We do the deliberating. You can choose to watch the sausage being made or not. Okay, no one else?
Go ahead.
What are your questions, Steve?
Okay, on attachment A, page 2, section 2, line 4 and 5, it talks about dissatisfied with the decision of the director or the planning commission, as the case may be. And the reference to the director should not be in there because this is a decision of the planning commission. And in line 3, we should have the same reference, Title 10, Chapter 2, Article 30, not just Article 30. And on project-specific conditions, condition number 2 there at the bottom of the page, this is some old language about transient or vacation rentals of a period of less than 30 days. I think the city council has now approved new language saying less than a calendar month. Because
that's
poor little old February would be excluded.
You're right, Steve. I remember that discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
And the only other thing that I would note, because we've talked about easements and PSLs and recording of the LLA, in the current condition 7, which I guess will become condition 9, I think that should also say Title 10, Chapter 2, Article 32, rather than just Article 32.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, looks great to me.
I'm okay with the changes you made, Steve. I suggested.
All right.
I am also.
Any additional discussion? Then I would entertain a motion to approve or disapprove of the request for the permit for the lot line adjustment.
All right, Steve, I'm willing to make a motion.
Commissioner Nolan, yes.
To make a motion that we approve lot line adjustment LLA 19-001 to grant 3,037 square feet of land to parcel 2. Address is 418 Andrew Drive, APN 022-0-030-675. That has traditionally been used by parcel 1, 1212 Daily Road, APN 022-0-030-480. A side access, and I guess we should say a side access and utility access. In addition to the conditions of approval, that we add items 6 and 7 per the language or very similar that staff has proposed. And I
that
can
we
go into that more. I
deliberated
wrote
tonight,
some of it down, but I don't have it detailed out. And in addition, add the minor adjustments that Chair Quillisi recommended that we do on the conditions of approval, which were on page 2, section 2, and that was the strike of director. And also to further, let me see if I made a mistake here. I think there was something you said about adding for the Title 10 part. I know we did that on section 7.
Yeah, line 3 of section 2 just has Article 30, and I think it should be referenced the same way as it is in line 6. That's all.
Okay, good. Right. And then on under Community Development Department conditions of approval number 7, be sure to add the Title 10, etc., in front of Article 32.
Right.
Okay. I think I got everything. If I didn't, please let me know.
I think so.
Okay.
Just, and make walls plural in
Well,
condition
that's
4.
correct. Yeah. That was also page attachment A, page 3 of 5.
Right.
Under item 4, make walls plural.
And the calendar year.
Yes, the calendar year, that would have been page 2 of 5 on attachment A, and that would be under Community Development Department conditions of approval number 2. That's line 2. Strike 30 days and add calendar month or similar.
Instead of 30 days, right. Great.
Right.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All right, Sherry, can we have a roll call on the motion, please?
Chair Quillisi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nolan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lottis,
Yes.
Commissioner Corbin,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Motion passes.
Mr. Wong, you have your permit approved. you'll need to work with staff on a lot of things to get the real stuff done now.
I'm willing to do that, and I really appreciate your hard work and dedication.
Well, thank you. None of us are lawyers, and we have to kind of struggle through this stuff sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item, director decisions. Any questions on that list from commissioners on item 4?
Can I ask a question about the director exemption on Boku to Lucas?
Sure.
Okay, so the appeal period is over when? June 8th, I think, is it?
When did we send that out? On the 7th? Jerry, help me out here. When did we send that out?
I don't have my email pulled up right now. I couldn't say, but it seems to me you get about 2 weeks to appeal, right?
Yeah, and you did send the email, and I have that. So
May 22nd is when you
Yeah,
sent
it's
it.
right here on
What it
the
is? I was
right
just
hand
gonna
side
pull
of
it up.
the chart for the matrix.
I don't understand what the outdoor dining is. What are they eating? Are they eating the powder?
Yeah, so it's
Food facility there.
Yeah, so it serves a couple different purposes. I've actually gone back and forth with Reno to understand this as well. There's a lot of different moving parts that he has going on here and minor revisions, but the overall vision is still the same in terms of what the commission saw last year, really, at this point. You're looking at 2 different patios that are going to be a part of this. I would call it a campus for what his vision is here.
Abutting that octagonal building.
Yeah, both of those are on the west side. One is already an existing grass facility, kind of in a triangular shape. That would be activated. In addition to that, there are 3 parking spaces that would be removed in favor of a patio area. And the vision with that patio area, which is really kind of the southwest of that site, is to interact with the trail itself. There will be seating there and then access for the trail. And the interesting thing about that area too is that his vision is to also allow for the charging stations to, and it's funny, he understands that there are people when they're charging their vehicles, they're just waiting in their car. Well, why not have an active space for them to hang out and while their vehicles are charging, either to rent a bike and hop on the trail or do some sort of walk. He's thinking big picture with some of these things. It's not just a dine out type of scenario where you have outdoor dining for a specific use. It's bigger than that. But it also allows for that into the future. He's actually working with the health department to get access and approval for a portion of his area to also be used for, I don't want to call it a restaurant, but kind of like a cafe type of scenario. So he's working on that as well.
Okay, what was the use that was actually approved for this property?
The use is really kind of a manufacturing use. Manufacturing.
Okay, so here's what happened. This happened before you, Lucas, and maybe before you too, Kathy. Which
I wasn't involved, right?
Boku wanted to be allowed to have manufacturing on this property, which is not zoned for manufacturing, and so they claimed that they were going to do 900 other things on the property, and the manufacturing was just one minor thing. And it wasn't like the main thing.
Right. Their main thing was sale of their superfoods.
Right. But honestly, if they're not manufacturing it, they don't have anything to sell. And they thought, oh, we're going to have a farmer's market and we're going to have this healthy living and we're going to have food and we're going to have like 12 other things and we're going to rent bikes. And they don't really, my issue is that it's a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that none of these really get done or get done well or get done thoroughly. And it was a sham to get this manufacturing approved on this property. And these permits keep coming up, but not a whole lot happens. And I don't know. I from the day one have had problems with the whole model of this business and where it's going and what the reality of it is. And I think it needs to be looked at carefully. And instead of saying, oh, isn't this wonderful? And this is such a great idea. It kind of reminds me of when a friend of mine presented her project from an architecture school, and it was a beautiful drawing of an unfinished project, and everybody like used their own imagination to imagine what it could be, which might be 7 times better than what the reality ever would be. And I think that's what we're having with this project. And I think that they need to be held to a higher level of completion and reality and do it one step at a time like we make everybody else do. And so it would be my feeling that they really need closer scrutiny and really need to be held accountable for what they're actually doing instead of coming with some pie in the sky generalization and just keep getting permits for I'm not quite sure what.
Well, okay, did they need a CUP for the original use? And that's for manufacturing, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And
for the
was
mixing of the powders, yes.
based on them doing something else?
I mean, I agree with Bobby, Commissioner Corbin. The piecemealing of this whole thing, it's starting to feel like it's getting out of hand, and that it would serve the community and everyone better to have this re-looked at comprehensively.
Kathy, unmute.
Pardon?
Unmute, Kathy.
Oh,
I hear you.
Yeah, I did hear her.
No, she was fine. We could hear her.
Kathy Nolan. Kathy
Can you
Nolan.
hear me?
Commissioner Nolan is on
Kathy
mute.
Nolan. You're
Oh.
muted, Kathy.
Kathy Nolan.
Yeah, Commissioner Lottis, you're not on mute.
Okay.
There you
I'm
are.
off. Okay.
Right.
Sorry. I wanted to say from the get-go, I started to talk and kept raising my hand. I actually worked on that project. I don't know if I need to be recused from this or I'm just trying to divulge, just to say that I, as a commissioner, did not vote on this project, but I was working and employed, or not employed, but I was paid by Bocoup on their previous submission. So I just want to be clear and upfront about that. So just advise me if I need to like mute or turn around or leave the room or just stay. I just want to be upfront.
Commissioner Nolan, there's no decisions being made. We're just discussing the.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and just a point of order, isn't the issue whether or not the commission wants to vote to appeal the decision?
Correct.
Or any member of the commission.
The process is if can
Well, any member can appeal individually. The issue would be whether or not the commission wants to vote to appeal, I believe.
but
correct.
would the appeal be having it go to council, or the appeal can actually have it go to planning commission?
It depends on the body that appeals it. So for instance, if someone from the planning commission would appeal the item, then it would go to the planning commission. If someone from the council
Okay.
wants to appeal it, it would go to the council.
Right.
Yep.
Can we do that as a group?
And that's with every DE, every director's exemption.
And you're able to do it individually or as a group. It's just how it's reviewed is changes.
Correct.
Okay. So is it appropriate? Well, I think the deadline is June 8th. So how do you advise us? Are we allowed to take action tonight? It's not on the agenda. As a group, I don't know. Is that allowed or?
It is not. I mean, it could
I
be
don't
as
think
simple
we
as
can
an
vote on
email.
it tonight, no.
Yeah, it would be. It would be as simple as an email to either me or
Okay.
Sherry, as to the merits of the call up for any specific director's exemption, not just this one in particular, but any director's exemption that you have questions.
And for future reference, since I'm just talking about procedures, Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, if one of you had, or a couple of you had asked for this to be on the agenda early enough, since it went out the 22nd, it could have been added to the agenda for discussion as an appeal by the body.
Correct.
But that right now that's but that window closed.
So
Correct.
if one commissioner notifies you by email to appeal this,
You're appealing it as a citizen, not as a commissioner.
okay.
Then the decision would come back to the commission
Okay.
for deliberation.
The appeal would be on the agenda for the appeal to be heard by the commission, right?
Correct.
So that would be your choice then.
On page 5, it describes how it can be appealed.
Yep. Just looking at it here.
Page 5.
Of the DE
Oh,
approval letter that was sent
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Oh,
the director.
okay.
There was a link to it in the email, right,
Okay.
Yeah. There's always procedures published in the DE itself for appealing.
right.
Yep.
Okay. Any other items that any commissioner wants to bring up for discussion?
I'd like to, on the heels of that conversation, first of all, just to clarify that the minor CUP that Reno got doesn't give any specifics about what they're actually going to serve and not what they're actually going to do. It's just this ambiguous activity at that location in those areas.
Then
That's
you,
correct?
my feeling is you could appeal it, Ray, on the basis that the exemption, that the requested exemption is insufficiently specific to be approved,
Got it.
or something like that, I guess.
Got it. So on the heels of that, part 2, even though it's not what we're looking at, we made some requests regarding the charging stations and stop me if I'm out of line and with bringing this up now. But we made with some requests regarding the charging stations and the size of the signs and heights of the signs and
Screening of the charging station.
screening of the chargings, the big charging and all that. Is there any movement on that?
So I do remember us having that conversation because I think we used that as an example piece a couple months ago. And if you recall correctly, the item itself has been approved and we've since finalized the project. So the project is as approved and as finalized. Now, granted, I remember us having conversations about the landscaping. The landscaping is small currently, but will grow over time. And I think in that same thread, the conversation was, you want that landscaping to be smaller, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Commissioner Nolan, because it provides for a better opportunity for that landscaping to actually to root itself and to be successful.
I recall that
We
too.
had that discussion, and that's up for grabs depending on what the plant materials and also how much room and space they had, in the planter with the, the footing of the structure and et cetera, et cetera. So it's dictated by more than one thing, but it is,
And how-
looks like they've grown. But.
How would someone go about, and again, stop me if this is totally off topic. Every time I drive down there, there's only, even before COVID, there was only 2 or 3 Teslas there. There's way more Priuses driving around and other kinds of cars. How do we or the city actually utilize that space better to get more charging stations?
Well, those charging stations only work for Teslas.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. And that space isn't very utilized because I've never even seen it, a third filled up with Teslas.
Yeah.
So as an informational item within that director's exemption for Boku, it also speaks to another company referred to as Electrify America. So Electrify America is also putting in charging stations, and those have universal charging adapters that are for not Tesla, but for other vehicles that we're talking about here. So it's the others outside of the Tesla component.
Including bikes, I believe, were mentioned in that report. Bike charging also,
Correct.
which is good.
Okay. So I apologize if that's something I missed, but.
I don't recall hearing about other charging stations, Lucas. When
Yeah,
did that come up and why did it not come before the commission?
That's a great question. So there are federal and state regulations that we've just been recently made aware of that really tie the hands of local authorities to the point where, as long as they're meeting specific guidelines, it's a building permit.
It's all ministerial then. Okay.
It's mandated ministerial if it
Yeah.
meets certain guidelines. Yeah.
I was just recently made aware of these, but the interesting thing is these have been in place for several years. So it's something that's been hidden because I've been in a couple different cities and I wasn't aware of these until coming here. So.
Well, the city must have come across something when it put charging stations in across the street from City Hall.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Lucas, if I understand correctly, there's still some discretion about things like landscaping and screening and stuff like that. Yeah, but
it still requires a site plan, which is through Electrify America we're reviewing currently.
Right, but the actual act of doing it is,
yeah.
Are you able to
Enforced by the
disclose
city.
how many charging stations Electrify America is putting in that location?
Yeah, I think it's 8, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that though.
And
Okay.
where is that?
They would be going in the same parking spaces that we're talking
Or
about.
charging stations or in the same parking spaces?
In the same parking spaces. So instead of being,
A choice.
say that again?
So there'd be a choice when you pull in as to which one you use.
Correct.
And
So
will
the
there
way-
be more signage on them as well that's bigger than it should be?
Not necessarily signage. They'd be a little bit larger than what we're seeing currently. The interesting thing is they're wanting those spaces to be dedicated solely for electric vehicles, but this gets back to the property owner or the business owner's bigger vision is having potentially all of those parking spaces throughout the entire facility, having charging stations. We're kind of getting off topic here for what the DE is. I'd rather just stick with the format of what the current DE is approving for.
But
You're
thanks
right
for
about
answering
that.
that.
The Electrify America was an informational item in there because this was something that I had a feeling that the commission would be concerned with moving forward. So it was imperative that I put something in there, making the commission aware that it's not a decision that's on the desk of this commission.
And does that initiative with Electrify America generate revenue for the city?
You're talking about these charging
Charging
stations?
stations.
No, unless we own the electrical. No.
Okay.
And so it's staff's position that there is no design review permitting that is allowed or permitted in association with those spaces at all?
Yeah, no, not in the cases of electrical. So I consider this to be similar to when solar power came on board maybe 8-10 years ago, and there was legislation that came forward. Initially, cities had pretty heavy-handed standards, and then once the federal government came through and the states followed through with that, it really limited the way in which cities could handle and address solar. I see that the same way with these charging stations.
Okay, the key thing is limited. The limited, like the cellular service. We've been able to take advantage of what small space we have, to do some limited, but it's limited, very limited.
Right.
Correct.
I don't know how we would even talk about landscaping unless there was a design review permit with that. I mean, I just, process wise, I'm not even sure, are you sure we can?
No, I am. I had a conversation with with their city attorney about that because I wanted to make sure that I was correct
Okay.
in this move, because it's a big move. It's something that's been on the books, I want to say, since 2016.
Right.
Lucas, could the city, this is not denying that anyone can't come in and put the charging station in, but could the city have a guideline for the landscape portion that went to the applicant ahead of time? In other words, here's a selection of plant material that you can select from, and it needs to be, this size or a range of this size and spaced so far apart so that within a year you have solid coverage. I don't know if you can do something like that or not.
I actually think within the guide, because we have a guidelines checklist,
Yeah.
and it's a couple pages long. I want to say it's within those guidelines. I would have to look at those guidelines again.
Okay.
Because that was one of the things that we had to have.
That is landscape standards, and presumably they'd have to abide by those.
Yeah, I've got to look at the guidelines again because I'm currently reviewing the Electrify America, and we will be following those guidelines to a T.
Okay. I did have one other question, Lucas, that is directly on point, I think, for the exemption that's here. You mentioned that the provision of this outdoor dining space would remove 3 parking spaces.
Correct.
All right. Will the remaining number of parking spaces still be legal?
Yes.
Okay. So they had way more than they needed in the first place.
Right. In the director's exemption, I think it speaks to a certain number of parking spaces. I can't remember the exact number. Pulling it up.
Must be retained, you mean?
Yeah, it's.
I don't mind them taking 3 spaces
There it
out
is.
as long as they still provide enough.
So the minimum number of parking spaces required for the Boku Superfoods is 65 spaces. And with the reduction of the 3 parking spaces, they are still going to have 86 parking spaces on the site. So they have a sufficient number.
Great. Yep.
Access.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Super. Let's move on to item 5 then. Future agenda items. Any questions here on tentative agendas? Looks like June 17th is going to be a fairly short meeting. And July 1st.
Hold on, June.
Well, at
Actually,
the moment.
I'm looking at. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt here. The June 17th meeting will also have 410 Tico on it as well.
Oh, okay. That'll be a public hearing.
That will be a public hearing, correct?
Okay.
I didn't hear what you said. What Antigua?
410 Tico or Tico.
410 Tico.
410 Tico
Got
Road.
Okay, yeah. I thought it was a new business or something. Okay, got it.
What is 410 Tico? I don't know.
It's a Spanish-style house on the west side of Tico that is set way back from the road behind a 6-foot block wall fence. Block wall, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. It's behind
I don't know what they want to do, but it's something they want to modify the house somehow.
Yep. There'll be more information. I don't want to go too much into it right
Yeah,
now.
no, that's fine.
And we should have a fair amount of Title 10 cleanup that could be considered. Sherry's been sending me Word versions of various sections of the code. And as Lucas and I agree on changes that we'd like to propose to the commission, I'm making red line sections out of those. And we'll have a number of them, I think, available to consider.
I would caution the commission to roll up your sleeves once
Hey.
again.
Yes.
Ready.
Our review has pointed out slightly more than 100 different sections of Title 10 that we would like to suggest corrections or modifications to.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else of interest on there? 107 North Ventura. That's the old World University. Are we getting any closer to having something for the commission to look at?
I can't really speak to that one, to be quite honest.
Okay.
I can just tell you that it's in discussions right now.
So I can go further, a little further, and say there's been a number of back and forth issues actively discussed in the development agreement negotiations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Is that okay, Lucas?
all the
I think you're still okay. We can't go much further than that.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll wait to hear from staff when these things are complete and ready for the commission to consider.
Correct. Looking forward to it.
This is down next to the bottom line on that first page, DRP 20-002, a new 2-story single-family residence. Where is that? Do you recall?
Yeah, there's not an address on here. Sherry, can you fill in the blank there? I think it's. Yeah, you're on mute.
You're still muted, Sherry.
1201 San Ramon, am I still?
1201. That's what I thought.
1201 San Ramon. Okay.
What about the
That's
hand singles? And
little
Zoom
streets one of those little streets that comes off of Park, is that right?
Off of Grand.
1201 what?
San Ramon.
Is that Gridley? Or is that off of Gridley?
It's off of Grand Avenue.
Grand. Okay.
San Ramon, yeah. San Ramon is North-South Street, just to the east of that church.
The Well.
The well.
Oh,
Okay.
sure. Yeah, it's on the north side of what do they call it? Where the bowling alley neighborhood is.
Golden West.
Golden West. Thank you. Yeah, it's like on the north side of that. There's a little kind of walkway connection.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then in September and January, we'll talk about upcoming meetings with the city council. All right. And then, do we have, then we have city council liaison, Mr. Wyrick.
very quickly, I really want to express my appreciation for the detail that everybody dug into on that lot line adjustment. I mean, I was really pretty impressed with how well y'all got into all those details and important details, because we know from history what happens when things like lot line adjustments aren't really thought through. So I really, really appreciate that very much. I still think about that piece of land on the knoll on the other side of Stewart Creek that's owned by the city, but the city doesn't have any way to get to it right now. I don't know how that happened, but years ago, those kinds of things did happen.
Off of Pratt Trail, maybe.
Yeah. So thank you very much for that. And I really appreciate that. I do hope that we're going to get things going. I think the virus did kind of put a lot of things on hold, and one of those was clarifying the commission process of getting the nominations done and on the agenda. So I'm going to personally try to make sure that moves along. But please, everyone who wants to continue to serve, please get your applications in.
Should we use the same form as before?
Yeah, I believe so. Lucas, do you want to correct me, or Sherry, on that? I believe that's the case.
Yep, it would be the same form.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the last thing really quick is something I'm a little wary of. Anytime somebody comes down from the legislature that takes away our discretion, directly or indirectly, I get a little worried because of our need to be very focused on our community's character. And something that sounds wonderful and I was initially very positive about, but I'm getting a little worried about it, is the micro enterprise home kitchen bill that the county is looking at taking up in terms of just adopting for the county as a whole and ending up maybe taking away some of our discretion in terms of being able to regulate it. And this is where you can do up to 30 meals a day, I believe. 30 meals a day, or up to 60 meals something like that. I don't know. There's a limit on it. Out of your home kitchen for direct sale to consumers. And it sounds, okay, you kind of get the feeling like you're in a single family residence and everything, but the county just put out that they're looking at possibly adopting this as a county mandate, taking away our discretion, that includes single or multifamily homes, owned or rented. And I'm starting to think about somebody with their kitchen in an apartment building, having consumers come, buying food at the door, how that impacts other people in the apartment. I did not realize this applied not just to single family, but also multifamily homes. So I'm trying to get some clarity on that, but
you still have requirements for a business license and environmental health reviews and all of that?
Yeah, that's kind of loose. And I just, these are kind of things that are a lot of good intentions that sometimes have a problem when implemented.
Yeah.
Sort of the kind of things that are going on in terms of, wanting to mandate multi-story apartment buildings by ministerial permit. There's things like that going on again out of the legislature. So I'm going to try to make sure that we get all this information circulated to the Planning Commission in a timely fashion. When anything like the county, we're trying to see when the county might want to take this up. It's AB 626 and AB 377, and find out whether or not we can, a lot of good ideas sometimes between cup and lip can cause some problems. And I was concerned, Lucas, I don't know if you've looked into this, but I was concerned that this was a mandate for multifamily and not just single family residences.
I'm in the very beginning stages. I would call it the infant stages of understanding it.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the cottage foods, and this is like 3 or 4, maybe 20 steps above that. So
right,
it's a little discouraging.
Yeah. If they denominate this in terms of meals, Bobby, how many muffins makes a meal out of your oven?
When they put this in initially, and I don't know what state it's in, when you make a baked good with a cottage license, they have 500,000 regulations of what you can and cannot do. Mm-hmm. Things that are shelf stable without refrigeration, you're not allowed to make. And yet then suddenly you're allowed to make 30 meals in your house with everything. Like, the health department goes from one extreme to the other, and there's really no logic to it. And it's infuriating. I mean, it's in part one of the reasons I stopped doing this, is because I couldn't stand dealing with them. It just wasn't worth it to me. So I don't know. I really don't understand the intention of that, or I just think it can easily go awry. And with the cottage license, there's 2 different kinds, and with one, there's no inspection whatsoever. So.
But anyway, I'm just giving a heads up.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how it evolves.
Well, I think monitoring and enforcing these rules comes under that category of nothing's too hard if someone else has to do it.
Well,
and the legislature doesn't have to do it.
There's a lot of things. Every day is a new day, as you know, right now. And for example, I was behind that we basically allow restaurants to get some more tables going outside, like in parking lots, like OBC did. I think that's okay temporarily, but we don't want to make it a permanent entitlement.
Well, I did see some pictures today that a friend posted on State Street with no cars, and it looks pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah. There are tables out behind Bonnie Lou's under the crepe myrtle trees, and
Yes,
that's very nice.
we went ahead with that as well. And one of the issues with closing the highway, for us doing that on Ojai Avenue, of course, is then you're sending tractor trailers through residential neighborhoods. You know, it's not, State Street has you can get in from the side streets to the parking lots and walk into State Street. We don't quite have that configuration here.
Yeah.
And it's not a state highway.
And it's not a state highway.
That's a huge,
Right. So think about all the trucks, all the dump trucks, tractor trailers, asphalt trucks.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be going through
down
residential
Ojai,
neighborhoods if you
so-
closed Ojai Avenue. So.
Yeah.
All righty. That's it for me. Thank you. Again, thank you for your work.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other comments or questions or discussion from commission members? All right, then as of 8:01, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Steve.